Welcome to another episode of the Mike Fallat Podcast, where we get to interview authors, entrepreneurs from all over the world. We like to listen to their stories and hear their lessons, and maybe it's going to help you with your journey and maybe set you on the pathway to freedom. And speaking of freedom, I think this podcast is absolutely perfect for you if you maybe feel trapped in your business. Our next guest, his name is Eric Kline. He wrote a book, and it was under Dreamstarters Publishing. He's one of the final clients with Dreamstarters Publishing because at the end of this year, we're shutting it down and going online training only. The book that he put together is perfect. It's called The Liberated CEO, the business that runs without you. And you know what? I think the reason why Dreamstarters Publishing is shutting down is because I was never able to crack the code where it could run without me. And that's why I started building Lead Marketing CRM, my new company, in this manner. So I can't wait to dive into this. You're going to enjoy this. Eric Kline, thank you so much for being a part of the Mike Fallat Podcast. I appreciate your time and for you to be here and share your wisdom. So welcome aboard.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate you having me on board.
Well, let's get into the genesis of this book. The Liberated CEO. There had to be some type of genesis moment where you're like, holy shit, I'm doing everything wrong. When was that? What happened? Give us a quick little background on who you are, where you come from, and that maybe pivotal defining moment, if you can.
Yeah, 100%. I was a general contractor in the Cayman Islands, and we grew our business very quickly. And at one point, I was, I kind of felt like an octopus, where I was like the head of the octopus, and like the 8 arms, I just controlled every one of them, and everything worked fine as long as that was the situation. But when I needed 10 arms, 12 arms, 20 arms, shit got tangled. And so basically, yeah, I mean, the genesis moment was I had this big project that I really should have turned it over to a team because I had a lot of other projects. So I onboarded a really large project on top of a bunch of other sort of normal projects that our company was doing. And I just decided to take it all on board. And I tried to solve every problem. I took every issue. I made contact with every client, did every estimate, ran every bill. And then I just had people working for me instead of me working through them. And that was kind of the big epiphany.
Okay, what year was this?
This was back in 2020.
Wow. And so what was it? The fact that you were just becoming overwhelmed? Because I think that the older we get, right, it's just natural. When we're younger, we want to take on everything because we have the energy. But as we gain the energy, or as we go through life, we lose energy but gain wisdom. So we start to see things that we're doing wrong right away. And then there's this moment, a breaking point where you're like, I can't do this 10 years from now. Something at this moment needs to change if the future version is actually going to enjoy life. And I'm assuming that's what happened with you.
Yeah, no, it's a very similar situation. I mean, at the end of the day, when you're starting a company, a founder really does pour their entire body and soul into it. And they have a very specific vision for every part of it. The problem is as you transition into success and you gain momentum and you start scaling, the same principles that led you to, start well and do good don't carry you through to the next phase.
Yeah, it's almost, I mean, it is actually the perfect phrase is what got you here will keep you here. Right? That's
Yeah,
just gonna,
fair enough.
gonna keep
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
stuck right there. So like I used to take a lot of pride in my work ethic, and I still do, but work ethic only gets you so far. You need to have systems and processes and team members that you can rely upon and leadership skills. And there's so much more to it than just work ethic.
100%. I mean, my badge of honor was I just worked harder than everybody else. I didn't care what time it was at night. I blasted emails out. I worked and did estimates. I worked 20 hours a day, just poured everything I had into it. And that's fine when you're getting started and you're creating that momentum, but it's completely unsustainable. And you don't build a team that way either.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that, maybe that's why I'm so in love with AI is because we're in an age where we can be as close to duplicating ourselves as possible. So, I mean, I'm assuming that you're going to be maybe sharing some insight on how to really take what's good about you and then have other people or other systems do the exact same thing. So, I can't wait to get into, maybe some of the remedies for people who do feel trapped. But one thing that caught my eye was the hero trap. Tell me about this.
Yeah, I mean, basically, everybody wants to be the hero in the beginning. You're the one that knows everything. Everybody works for you. It's your idea. And then, you kind of get seduced by this fact that, okay, all the good ideas are in my head and everybody needs me to help solve them. And it's funny because the people on your team, they're very willing to kind of give you what we call the monkey. That's that sort of that monkey on your back, that the next thing that has to happen in the process. And so if you create a culture in your company where you are the source code, then everybody's going to completely attached to that and say, I can't make a decision without him. And then you become involved in decisions that you really shouldn't have to make and are probably the worst person to make them. You're not closest to it, but you paralyze your own team because you've created a culture that everything has to go through you. And that's the hero trap where you just want to take it all on. And it feels good because you like to help people, you like to solve problems. This is your baby. You pour yourself into it. But that is exactly the trap. That's exactly the thing that keeps you stuck and doesn't allow you to grow your team.
You're right about it. It's when you this happened with Dream Shares Publishing with me. When I was cut out of the process, I started to lose touch with my clients. And you know what? I used to say like, well, let me just jump in. I want to talk to him. Well, then all of a sudden the client didn't know who to talk to. Was it me or was it my project manager? And then it would throw off everything with my project manager. But then the more I stayed out of it, actually, the more I got done. But I wasn't getting that same enjoyment out of the business because I wasn't the hero. I wasn't involved. I didn't know where everything was. And it's a weird transition, but it is required. I mean, do you really think that Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are involved with, solving a client's problems anymore? No, it's at very high level. So you have to maybe retrain your dopamine system of what makes you happy within the business. Am I right?
That's exactly what it is. I mean, retraining the dopamine system is perfect because basically I say you have to have a new badge of honor. The new badge of honor is building that team that can run without you. One of my favorite moments, or one of my sort of aha moments when I feel like, okay, I might be actually making it here, is that first meeting that I didn't run, where I let my team take charge and they produced the estimate. They presented it to the client. They asked the questions and they asked me, they said, hey, Eric, do you want to review this before we sit down with the client? And at one point I said, no. I said, unless you have a specific question that's visionary, I don't have any questions for you. Do you have one for me? That's fine, but it better be relevant to me. And when I took that step back and I let them run it and I let them meet the client and tell them everything about it, and they were experts of it. And I really watched them rise before instead of kind of standing in my shadow. I watched them start off a little bit shaky, but then as they gained momentum, man, I can see the empowerment that they had. And I saw how the client connected to them. And I sat back and just watched it all happen because I didn't have that's all I needed to do. I didn't have to step in. And that was my new badge. I felt so good at that. It kind of fulfilled that sort of dopamine thing when I was like, okay, these guys prepared, they executed, and they built that relationship with the client. And I watched the client attached to them, not to me. And the client was happy that I was there. It was great to see me. They said, oh man, you have a great team. This is awesome. I mean, it was the perfect transition.
Wow. Where does it begin then? Is it all about systematizing it with SOPs? What's your philosophy? I know you have the art of replacing yourself. Do you almost have to document every decision, every thought, every process, every day, what your day looks like, and then find out, okay, maybe I can't replicate myself directly. I always think of the movie The Moneyball. Have you ever seen Moneyball?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's not about finding the player that's exactly like you, but it's finding maybe like you build it in the aggregate where you find this person could do this and that one's better than me at it. But if you have 3 or 4 different people, it does add up to the sum of your parts, and therefore you can replicate yourself, maybe not with one, but with many. So where do we begin?
Well, where it started was kind of like, again, when you've got a budding company, the people inside of that company may not be the same people that scale it, right? So you have to look at your people first. So, the 3 I's of hiring: intensity, intelligence, integrity. Those are the 3 things that you have to have on your team to make it all work. When those people when you have that type of person, Then you can start to think about what happens if I'm gone for 30 days? What breaks? What's in my head that they don't know that they should know? What do we need to codify?
Mm.
Right. And that's sort of how I started breaking it down. That, I said, okay, if I'm gone for a month or 60 days or whatever, what would fail? And then I wrote every one of those things down. And then I trained my team on how to, I really trained them how to think, because you don't want people who can just execute tasks. You want people who can think the way that you think. So the whole teaching process became different. I used to teach people how to do things, right? This is what you do. They come to me with a problem, do this. Then I started to change that. I changed my language around it where I said, ask them questions. Well, what do you think? Let me tell you how I would think about this. So they could develop those soft skills and those skills to understand the why behind the how.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. So you said it before where, you don't maybe even want to step in and solve the problem, but you get them to think, right? And when you get them to think, they're going to make decisions like you did that were poor, right, in the beginning. But through the poor judgment or poor decisions, they gain wisdom and then therefore they get a little bit smarter in the next one. Are you saying that in the very beginning, especially as you build this culture, that you can't step in and be the hero even when they're making that bad decision when you know it? Do you have to kind of let them fail inexpensively, quickly, and frequently?
You want to try to put the guardrails up because you ultimately want them to be successful. Your business needs it to be successful, and your clients need to feel success. But what you do is you talk them through the strategy. I say, don't bring me the problem, and don't bring it to me so I can solve it. Come talk to me about your strategy, why you think it's that way, and then ultimately get them to own it. Because if I tell them what to do and it doesn't work, they're not really owning that issue. Or if it does work, they're not owning that either. But if you can get them to completely, you know, own the entire question and the process and the problem and the solution, and by making sure that they're thinking through it, and you're not giving them the answer. That's the big key. You don't give them the answer, right? You help them bounce a strategy off of you. You ask calibrated questions to pull the answer out of them and make them say it and make them own it. And when that happens, man, you get they accelerate and you get a lot of freedom.
So, I mean, different background than you, but I've been in a lot of mastermind groups, and there's been this conversation that's popped up of like, do you find the B and C players and turn them into A players, or do you find the A players and keep them A players? So, what's your philosophy on that? Because I've realized that maybe A players will always have jobs no matter where they go. So, there's only so much you can do. But if you could find a B or C and help them turn their life around and maybe become that A player in that one field. I don't know. You increase loyalty, and as time goes on, brain power is not as important as it once was. It's more about work ethic because we have access to Chat GPT and all these cool bells and whistles. Answers can be found if you care. I don't know if you can train caring. You have to find the people that want to care, and I think that's the most important. So, what do you say whenever it comes to the BCA players?
We've got a saying that we've said many times as we hire or as we interview people. And we get guys in the construction industry that come to us and they say, Eric, I've got 30 years of experience. I've worked on this and this and this and this. And then as we start to talk to them, and even some of these people we've actually hired, what I realize is they don't have 30 years of experience. They've got 1 year of experience 30 times. So they didn't grow, right? And so what we look for is we're trying to find the people with the best attitude and aptitude, right? So, if it's in their heart and they can learn, if they got intensity, right? If they pour themselves into it, if they've got integrity, they're not going to lie to you, or you can trust them. If you got those things, then we can build those people. And so you're absolutely right. But the thing is, I still think those people are A players. I mean, the worst thing you can do is put a C player in with an A player. Like it doesn't really work. But somebody who's an A player, sort of in the bud stand, and they just haven't blossomed yet. Those are the people you want to grab, and you want to grab them early and train them hard.
Yeah, good point. They haven't blossomed yet. They still are A, but they just haven't found a knack or an interest or a passion. And once you unlock that, now you're off to the races. Steve Jobs, very famous for only wanting A players and driving them as hard as they possibly can, right? I don't know how much that builds culture down the road or in your business, but maybe that is required to build something great. And I don't know, your leadership style, you don't seem like the guy who drives hard. I would think that if you don't care, get out of here, right? And you basically lead from example. And if they follow your path, then they're on the team. But what is your leadership style? Are you more of a Steve Jobs? Are you more of an Elon? Are you more of even, let me think of another name out there. Those are the two that stick out in my mind. So how would you say your leadership style looks? And do we all have our own unique one? And I would assume we attract different people based off of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my philosophy is really culture forward. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that we have a super strong culture within our company because I feel like that's the best way to scale. And in construction projects, project managers are very autonomous. I mean, each one of them almost runs like their own company. So getting a really binding culture is really important because jobs are all over the place and there are teams on those jobs, but ultimately we want to act as one cohesive group and we want our client experience to be the same across it. And so we want to be able to attract people, to our culture that fit our culture. And I don't care how good you are at what you do. If you don't fit our culture, then you will not last in our company. We definitely put culture first. And our trademarks of our culture are we are highly collaborative. Two is one is none. We try to make sure that everybody is informed of what is going on. We are going to constantly do training and share our experiences, our wins and our losses. We're very open. If somebody makes a mistake, we are not that company that's going to berate you for a mistake. We're going to support you. We're going to get you to raise your hand fast. We want to fail fast. We want to fix it fast. We want to learn from it. So our culture is very much that sort of collaboration and growth oriented teaching environment that, people feel safe, coming to work on. But that doesn't mean you're not a hard worker in our culture because that's part of our culture too, is that we have extreme ownership. It's one of my favorite, books in that, we don't have excuses. So we don't have a culture of excuses. We own it. But because we own it so hard that it's very easy for us to think, okay, you screwed up. You've owned it. Let's figure out that problem together and solve it and move on. And that's what we look for. And not everybody fits into that. Some people just can't raise their hand when they make a mistake, or they can't forgive a mistake when it's been made. And so, we're really trying to develop that culture to be the strongest part of our organization.
I would say your core values, I mean, you probably talk a lot about having high standards and your background, senior project manager within the Ritz-Carlton. So I'd love to get into this because I believe Ritz-Carlton is the pinnacle of luxury. And I don't know, is it just luxury? Is it highest quality customer experience? People always ask me, have you ever stayed at a Ritz-Carlton? There's nothing like it, right? So the standards are so high in areas like that, and you probably were surrounded by people with extremely high standards. And I don't know, I think it's Tony Robbins that says you will always fall to your standards. And I think that, whether it's in your fitness or within your business, your finances, what is that thermostat set at? Because if you have low standards, no matter what, your systems and processes, I think, will always meet up with that to some degree. So explain how your high standards played a factor in maybe even getting that position with Ritz-Carlton, or what it was like to work within that atmosphere.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of our principal sayings is that, you can't expect what you don't inspect, and your level of acceptance becomes your standard. And so, you can't accept things that aren't right, whether it's a punch list from construction or, if it's a process that still needs work. So the idea is that we just don't accept things that aren't right, but we work together to fix it. And when I was senior project manager for the Ritz-Carlton developer here in the Cayman Islands, it was great to see. I wasn't part of the Ritz-Carlton staff itself, but I was on the asset management side and on the developer side of building the Ritz-Carlton here in the Cayman Islands. And so being able to see their culture and the way that they approached that level of acceptance and that super high standard is certainly resonated, with me. And it's either right or it's not right. There's no, it's good enough We don't try to get a client to compromise on anything about their design or build. It's either right or it's not right.
Wow. Yeah, and so how did you land that? I mean, how do you go from just construction into that world of, to me, it's one of the finest properties probably in the United States, in the world, like Ritz-Carlton, top of the line. So how did you get that? Is it simply because your name, your personal brand extended different mastermind circles or different investor circles? How did that come to be?
Yeah, I just had a good experience with building high-rise construction in Jacksonville. I was a young guy too. This was 20 years ago, and so I just came in with a lot of fire. And the developer of the Ritz Carlton here in Grand Cayman, I got an interview with him. I literally came here on vacation, and I stayed here for a week. It rained a bunch of days, and so I just decided to go out and meet people. So I didn't answer any ads or anything, but I got a few interviews, and one of them was a developer for the Ritz Carlton here, and I got offered a job on the spot. And within the first year of employment, I was the senior project manager, and kind of the rest is history. I worked with him for 5 years. We did a bunch of things at the Ritz. We had some developments behind it. We developed these single family Ritz Carlton branded homes that were behind the Ritz Carlton here. It was just a great project. And then like so many things in my story, it's weird because everybody I've ever worked for has gone out of business. So it's been a strange world. So when I left Jacksonville, the developer I was working for there building high rises was ended up going out of business, went into a receivership, and the same thing happened here. And that's how Encompass was born. We were able to, we kind of saw things coming, and we decided that it was time for us to really kind of, hang our own shingle and create our own destiny instead of putting our hands in somebody else's, our lives in somebody else's hands.
God, and wait, so you're still in the Cayman Islands,
I
right?
am. Yeah, 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 for sure.
And why is that? I just heard it's unbelievable. When we first started talking, I think it was a couple months ago. I mean, to me, people go there for vacation, right? Cayman Islands. I always think of the movie Blow, when he talks about the Cayman Islands, and I'm like, man, it must be such like a paradise island. I would assume you went there and you're like, it's so gorgeous, I'm never going back. Is that how it was?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. We came here on vacation. Literally moved here within 30 days of that vacation. Changed my whole life. We're living in a foreign country. We had a 1-year-old son. But at the end of the day, I think ultimately people regret the things that they don't do. They don't really regret the things that they do because you're always learning from what you're doing. And so, we kind of made a decision. My wife and I said, the Caymans are beautiful. It was a childhood place that she would always go to with her dad. She took lots of vacations. This was actually my first time in Cayman. So I literally went to Cayman on vacation and I moved there 30 days later. And I'd never been here before. So we just really just shifted our entire life. And so it's just been an incredible journey. The people here, the energy here is amazing. And the opportunity was super strong. Our proximity to the US, the very high net worth people, very affluent here, stable government. There's just lots of good reasons to be here. And after working here for 5 years, we got very attached to the Ritz Carlton and a lot of the Ritz Carlton owners. And that was one of the things that helped us springboard into business.
Now, your major background is construction, right? I've worked with many service-based businesses. One of the hardest things that these guys run into is finding good help. And it's amazing how many of them have told me that the guys that they get usually have checkered pasts. Some of them are able to break away from those pasts. Some of them are not able to. So what do you say to the people out there, blue collar world, in order to find good talent? What is it? Is it simply, giving people a chance, giving them some leeway, having that culture where you don't take shit from nobody? Like what is it about your business you're able to find good help that maybe some of the people listening or that I work with, they struggle with?
I'm going to point it back to culture. I mean, people like to feel like they belong to something, that you're not just, an employee or worker, that you're all kind of on a shared mission, right? And to create that sort of level of buy-in where it's like, hey, one of my favorite stories, right, is we had just finished this massive, beautiful house, like a $10 million home, right? And the owner of this home, they just threw a barbecue for my team and I, right? And this is everybody from the laborers that sweep the floor to the project managers. We're all together, so we're a very diverse team. Like my high end project managers, these are 6-figure income guys. all the way down to the, to the labor guys, right? But when you see us together, you can't tell who's who. There's everybody's so bound, right? And so one of the cool things that I saw was one of our labor foremen. I overheard this conversation. It was kind of like it wasn't meant for me, but I overheard it. And he grabbed one of the other labor guys and he looked. We were standing on this deck while they're throwing this big barbecue for us, and the owners are there. There's music playing and stuff. And he leans over to the guy next to him and he says, "Can you believe that guys like us could build a place like this?" And man, it just blew my mind. I was like, wow, look at the pride that these guys have. So basically, how do we find these people? When we create such a strong culture that when everybody has the same beliefs, the shared values, the visions, and the goals, then when you go to hire people, you're attracting from within. So like all the people on my team know a guy or knows a guy that knows a guy, or hey, we love what you guys are doing. We see the barbecues that you have, the Christmas parties that you throw. Like, my brother's in construction and he'd really like to work for you. So what we've been able to do is kind of put our culture forward and be able to promote, what we believe in and how we work. And then that's attracted some of the best people, I think, like to us. Like we haven't really had to go out and knock on doors to find good talent. I feel like a lot of the good talent has just naturally gravitated to us. Unfortunately, in the construction industry, people are abused. Laborers are abused, right? Their bosses don't pay them. They treat them like shit. Like there's all kinds of, it's an industry with a checkered past, And so for us to kind of stand out as a bit of a beacon in that wasn't really too difficult.
Hmm. Now, how about the little stuff? Like, what is it that you pay attention to that are maybe non-negotiables? I mean, showing up on time. I pick up on that. I saw you jumped in the Zoom meeting a couple minutes early. I can tell from somebody just by showing up to a Zoom call what's important to them. So time, I would assume apparel, right? How they show up. Are their stuff, is their stuff clean? Tools, are they completely organized? Like, give me an idea of what you look for, the little stuff that either really says it's a green flag or a red flag that if they're going to be long term, or maybe even the way they speak about themselves. If somebody talks down about themselves, I really believe that they're a fortune teller and they're setting it up for a life of misery. So tell me a little bit about what you look for, what you hear, what you see that's really important.
Well, again, going back to the three I's: the integrity, the intensity, and the intelligence. It goes back to personal integrity. You're 100% right. I believe that, like, I grew up in a military family. My dad was like, everything was by the book, by the clock. There's no options to be late. And so personal integrity is super high for me. You have to do what you say you're going to do. And, getting people to understand that about our culture, because that's my personal culture, but it is our business culture too. So everybody, and the reality is you don't feel good when you're late. You don't feel good when people accept late, right? And so when you create a culture that's so strong that everybody knows you're not going to be late, right? Like you feel like you're part of something better. So you perform better because you want to be better. Like I really do believe in the goodness of people and the belief that people do want to be positive and be good and create a good work product. So creating that culture that says that is our standard. You fit in that or you don't. If you're a six-figure project manager and you're amazing at what you do, but you're late for every meeting, you will not be in our company. Like that's impossible. If you talk down to people, you will not be in our company. It doesn't matter how good you are as an individual performer. So we're so culture first driven that I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Well, I'm even thinking while you're just saying that, I had to go through a lot of personal assistance, I guess you could say. I have my project manager. She's been a rock star since the beginning. But when it comes to even virtual assistants that are my PAs, basically, to show up on time, it took me a while to find somebody. And is that part of the process when you are starting out? There's that phrase, you got to kiss a lot of frogs, right? Do you have to go and when you're starting out and you're by yourself, you're a solo entrepreneur to build this culture, right? It's just you. For people to get it to be known what you're all about, what you're trying to accomplish in the beginning, before the culture is built, do you have to? Is that part of the process? Do we just have to accept it? Because I found somebody and it took me probably 5 or 6 tries. But finally, I don't have to remind somebody to show up on a call at the right time. And now I reward them not only, I mean, financially, of course, because I'm paying them, but I say whenever something is good, "Hey, man," or "Hey, woman," or I don't say "Hey, woman." I say "Hey, man," or "Hey, charity," or whatever. I really love that you did that. That means so much to me. So I make it very well known what I appreciate and what things that piss me off. So I'll be like, "Hey, you know, when you're building this website, whenever it flies in like this, these little actions, I really don't like that. Can we just make sure?" So I'm very articulate in what's going on in my brain so they know what's important and what's not. So is that part of it? You got to kiss a lot of frogs, but be very communicative for you to actually get shit done.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the problem that most founders have is that when you're getting started, you need bodies. You know, this thing is moving. You're by yourself. You got to bring people in and do it, and you don't have the time to vet people like you normally like you would as you grow because you don't have that culture yet. You're trying to define it, and so it's hard. I mean, that was one of my biggest struggles. I had way too much turnover. I kept people that I shouldn't. I hired people that I shouldn't. I didn't let people go fast enough in certain times because I needed somebody. And that's something that I think everybody's gonna feel in the beginning. But the thing is you can't keep you got to keep your eye on the prize because you have to. It's real easy to get caught up into that and let that perpetuate. At the end of the day, you have to stabilize as fast as possible. So just finding that one person and getting this one connection that says, okay, you think like me, we share the same values, we have the same culture. Let's build off of that. Almost like concentric rings, on a tree. Like you have to kind of get that core first. But people won't fit and they will have to be let go. And you are going to kiss a lot of frogs in that process. And the thing is, like, but don't compromise your integrity. Don't hold somebody in place that's not right. It's one of my biggest things to tell people is like, don't be afraid to get rid of somebody's not good. You'll figure it out. It'll bring you the space that you need to get the right person. But holding the wrong person is cancer and absolutely needs to go.
Mm. No, in one of the final chapters, if not the final chapter, you talk about the legacy through leadership. And I don't know, with the world the way it's going, it just seems like things are coming and going really fast. So, how do you define legacy? What do you mean by this? Like, is it simply building something that outlasts you so you can pass it on from generation to generation, or whatever you create really does impact and solves a lot of problems for a lot of people. Therefore, it ripples into different generations, not just because of the entity you've created, but maybe the experiences, the finances you're able to provide to those that work with you and work for you, and the things you're able to build. So, can you get into that? Maybe that's the ultimate goal is really to create something that outlasts you that has really meaningful impact for a shit ton of people. So, can you explain a little bit?
Absolutely. I absolutely, I'm honestly a businessman at heart. So like my degrees in marketing and finance, like I just chose construction as my business. And what I love about construction are these physical manifestations of our efforts. I can drive down the beach here in Cayman and look after, beautiful home after beautiful home and be like, wow, we did that. And then some people would say that's an awesome legacy. And I go, well, that's not the legacy. The legacy is the team that we created that continues to build these things, right? Like the one of the things as a founder or as an owner of a company or a leader, a CEO, or even a manager, you have such a responsibility to the people. And that's the legacy, right? Like when you can create a culture that's so strong that those people carry that torch for you, that becomes, that can go on forever. Houses are gonna, they'll come in and out of style that they last a long time, but it's for one family. When you create a culture and you build team and you build people, wow, the ripple effect the family that they create, the way that they teach their children, how they coach a baseball game, like the learning that takes place on how to be a good manager, how to be a good person, how to be a good teammate. Like those are the things that I'm trying to create. And so these buildings, they're just the results of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I mean, what's cool about real estate, it is a tangible form of an obscene amount of work and a lot of teamwork at that. So you basically build something. I think that there's a study that was done. What makes people happier? Is it the fact of a product, something that you buy, or is it something that you experience? What keeps people happiest the longest? And what you find out through the study is that it's a combination of both. It's an experience of building something. So when people restore a car or build a car, that car provides them more joy than going out and buying one. But it takes longer, right? So the same thing happens with a house or a building. It's the act of doing something, and now it's a tangible reminder of everything that it took to build that. So when you see that house on the beach, I guarantee in your mind, you're like, man, that bathroom in there, or that wall that we put together, a fireplace. Oh my God. I remember when we dealt with that and Bill was running into this issue and we ran it. Like, it's a reminder of all the experiences and all that added up. That's what makes it happy. That's what makes it a happy experience, and it keeps you happiest the longest, right?
Absolutely. And some of the other biggest joy, like just to take it a step further, is these amazing houses that we build. We work with awesome people, and there's trials and tribulations and triumphs and everything all wound up into it. So it's very exciting. But one of my favorite things is to get a picture, right? Like afterwards, or a lot of times we end up getting fairly close to our clients because it's a pretty long process to build, right? We're 2, 3 years sometimes on a big house. And we develop these really strong relationships where I end up become personal friends with a lot of our owners. So another one of my favorite joys is like we didn't just create this sort of edification, right? We created this vessel that holds their family memories, that has their special moments. And so I get to participate in some of that by either being there presently, or I see a picture on Facebook of some party that they threw and everybody's gathered around the kitchen that we helped them create. That's just an awesome legacy.
Andrew Carnegie is famous for saying that he never worked at a certain point more than 2 hours per day. I don't know if it's true or not, but how do you look at divvying up your time as a leader? Are you working still nonstop? Are you segmenting your life? Any words of advice for anybody listening in the construction or just entrepreneurial space? I love to work, so to me, I want to work all the time, and I feel the best after I do something very productive within the business. My goal every day is to move the business 1% forward every day. If I do something that does that, I feel good. So, how do you look at it time-wise, breaking up your day, even maybe managing your calendar and your schedule?
Yeah. So, I made this transition over the last couple of years, right? Where I was that CEO controlling everything to now I built this amazing team that this super strong culture, and the business is running practically without me. I mean, I'm feeding the funnel, right? So business development is really important for me, and that relationship and tending that culture, and then sort of walking the floor and just making sure that people are getting what they need. But my day is different. I used to work 15, 16, 18 hours a day, like just nonstop. I would be quoting things at night and ordering things in the morning, and it was just chaos for me. But now, this is what the Liberated CEO is sort of all about. My plan for the day is I work 4 hours a day. And that 4 hours is where I'm available for meetings. I'm trying to be very disciplined with that. So I try to take 4 hours a day, and I'm available for meetings and site walks and those kind of things. The next 4 hours a day or another 4 hours a day, I commit to learning. So I'm listening to podcasts. I'm finding out what about new construction technologies. I am reading books. I am trying to just enhance my knowledge, because then what I do is the things that I learn, I'll turn it into a PowerPoint presentation and then go back and teach it to my team. Like I read this awesome book by Chris Voss, which is about negotiations. I was like, negotiations is something that we all do. We have to negotiate with ourselves. We negotiate with our partners. We're negotiating with each other. And so we should probably be pretty good at that in the construction business. So I read that book. I built a beautiful PowerPoint presentation and did a 20-minute presentation to my team on how to be a better negotiator. And so being able to go and learn those things and like bring them back, that's really where I'm trying to spend a lot of my time. And then also, it's amazing because when we were starting the company, or in the early years, everything was about creativity. We were dreaming up houses to build, and we were doing these designs, and then all of a sudden we got super busy and it was all about just execution. Well, now that I've been able to step back, I've gotten to that creative chair again, where I'm thinking about these new developments and these new designs and all these things that I'm learning in the process, right? Because I'm dedicating that learning time, just feeding back into that loop. And so I create space for just being creative. So learning, being creative, and then creating, and then working in the business. That's kind of how I break up my day.
last question I got for you, and this is what I ask our most recent guest because everybody's been asking me about it. So, how much has AI changed the construction world? Are you seeing anything that we're not seeing? Is there something cool out there? Is there something scary? Anything technology wise that might be, interesting for the listener?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, AI is certainly going to make its mark on the construction industry. We're touching it every day. When you think about construction, there is engineering in it. There's law in it. There is architecture. I mean, it's really so multifaceted that almost every major discipline and professional thing is in it. Even health and medical stuff has to do with construction as well. So we're using AI all the time to help us review documents. Even something like putting the entire code into AI and then just asking the AI questions. Like the building code is super complicated. It's in a book that's 8 inches thick. It's like it's very difficult to even find things. So we're using it, as a resource to be able to find code things. And we're also using it for plan review. So we're able to upload plans into it and ask it some specific questions. It still in early phases of being really effective at doing estimating and stuff like that, but I think it's going to get there. So we're touching it every day to continue to stretch it and see where its limitations are. But it's extremely useful for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I just made a post about it yesterday. The robots won't run the world. It's those who use the robots, right? Who learn how to use them. It will be your competitive advantage, whether it's now or a year from now or 5 years from now. If you can utilize this technology and you have a chainsaw while your competitor is still doing it with a hatchet, my God, it's going to be night and day difference. And you'll be able to produce better products at a lower price. And therefore, it's a problem solving tool on both fronts. So, man, I think that become good friends with AI, use it as much as possible, even if it's not. Somebody made a comment on my wall today. AI it's still, when it comes to writing, still doesn't match this, and this. I'm like, if you're not using it right now, you won't become a master of it. Get some reps in every day because it's going to get better. Every day it's getting better, whether you realize it or not.
Well, I think it gets better because we're using it. And so if we want it to get better, we need to keep teaching it. And that's what we're doing. We're uploading and putting things into it all the time, even though it's not giving us exactly the results that we want because it can't do it yet. We keep challenging it every day. And even in short intervals, even in time of a month, we'll say, hey, we're getting better results this month than we did last month out of that. So we're committed to doing exactly what you said. We're going to be friends with the AI and the robots because, if we don't use it, we know our competition will.
Yep. Yeah, and does come down to the prompts. So sometimes when it doesn't spit out what you want, you're like, "Oh my God, I prompted it the wrong way. It's me." Like it's not the robot, it's you, and you become a better communicator with the robot. It's funny.
100%.
So, anyways, the book, guys, The Liberated CEO. Pick it up on Amazon. Bestseller, multiple categories. Eric Kline, The Business That Runs Without You. Is there a website? Is there a social media channel that you're quite active on? I know you're not a very big social media guy, but is there one that you're leaning towards that people can reach out to you or a website they can go to?
Yeah, you could find me. I literally just started social media. I had a zero footprint forever. I just kind of started this thing as this new chapter of my life. So you can find me at ericklinelive.com. And my social media is all on, there's links to my social media on ericklinelive.com.
Cool. Yeah, he mentioned a few good books there. Extreme Ownership is another one he recommends out there. And Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. I think that's the one you were talking
That's a
about,
great
right?
one. Yeah.
So a couple gold mine books in addition to yours. So guys, check it out. The Liberated CEO. You want freedom? I'm telling you, you get systems and processes in place, build a culture. You start to really think about life outside of business. And if you start to build your business in a way that maybe you want to sell it someday, even if you don't, you start to plan it the right way, and this book could help. So pick it up. The Liberated CEO. I was going to say Chris Kline. No, that's a famous actor, I think, Chris Kline. So anyway, Eric Kline, thank you very much for being here. And is there anything else you want to say?
Thanks, Mike. No, it was a pleasure, man. Thanks. This was like one of my first podcasts, so I appreciate it. I hope the listeners enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, whenever I meet with somebody outside of the US, I get a little bit nervous about the internet quality. You must have Starlink or something because it's perfect internet. What are you using?
Perfect stuff. I don't know, just the locals, fiber. Yeah.
Oh, perfect
Yeah, we're
internet.
pretty sophisticated here in the Cayman Islands. We got lots of banking and attorney and law stuff here. So yeah, we're pretty sophisticated with technology.
I was assuming with your standards, it wasn't going to be a little shaky. Every once in a while, I've run across a
No,
podcast where it's shaky, but I appreciate you being
okay,
on time, actually early, and putting
100%.
out a great podcast for us. So thanks so much, man.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Take care, guys.
Remember, guys, $1 million book will lead to $1 million life. Right on.